In the shadow of crumbling buildings and scorched vehicles, beneath a sky choked with ash and despair, Marcus Hale stood trembling, facing an unthinkable decision. He knelt slowly beside Atlas, his loyal German shepherd and the last remaining friend he had in the world. His fingers, calloused from years of battle, fumbled as he unfastened the chain from Atlas's neck, setting him free, surrendering his last lifeline amidst the ruins of Ashfield. Above them, a torn and faded American flag fluttered weakly, a silent witness to the end and a fragile beacon of hope. Marcus closed his eyes, unaware that this painful act of letting go would soon lead him toward healing, reunion, and a new beginning he thought impossible in a world turned to dust. The sky above Ashfield was a heavy quilt of ash, its once clear blue now replaced with endless shades of gray. A cold wind murmured softly through shattered windows, brushing over blackened metal skeletons of cars scattered across deserted roads. Half-collapsed buildings stood like ancient ruins, their interiors exposed, walls fractured, memories spilling out into emptiness. The quiet was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of weakened steel or distant rustling of debris swept by the relentless breeze. Through this lifeless maze, Marcus Hale moved with a practiced caution born from years of survival. Marcus was in his mid-40s, a man whose once muscular frame had grown leaner from scarcity, yet still retained a rugged strength. His dark hair, streaked generously with silver, framed a weathered face defined by deep-set blue eyes that carried shadows from countless sleepless nights. Marcus was a man shaped by hardship, his jawline sharp, always clenched with determination. He wore a torn, dust-covered military uniform, the American flag patch faded, yet visible on his shoulder, serving as a ghostly reminder of the past. As he navigated through a narrow alley cluttered with rubble, Marcus scanned methodically for any signs of food or clean water. His heart no longer raced with anticipation as it once had. Hope had dulled to mere instinct. The crunch of charred wood and broken glass underfoot echoed hollowly between buildings, a grim rhythm accompanying his lonely pilgrimage. At his heels limped Atlas, Marcus's last surviving companion. Atlas was an aging German shepherd, once powerful and proud, now thin and frail, fur patchy and gray around his muzzle. He was approximately 10 years old, a dog who had seen battles alongside his human companion and now bore the scars to prove it. A deep wound along Atlas's flank, long healed into a pale, jagged scar, marked their last devastating encounter, a painful souvenir from the day they lost everyone else. His brown eyes, clouded with age, still watched Marcus faithfully, yet his gait had grown increasingly stiff and pained, each step a quiet battle against time. Marcus stopped suddenly, his hand raised in a silent signal. Atlas immediately froze, instincts from years of training overriding his physical weakness. Marcus peered ahead, eyes narrowing an abandoned convenience store, its sign dangling by a single wire, gently swaying and squeaking in the wind. The store front was blasted open, walls charred, shelves stripped bare long ago. Yet Marcus knew from experience that even the emptiest places could still hold hidden treasures. Cautiously, they approached, Marcus stepping first into the dim interior. The air inside was stale, thick with dust and the acrid scent of smoke. Atlas sniffed weakly, then shook his head as if the odor offended his senses. Marcus combed through toppled shelves, overturning empty cartons and shattered bottles, frustration growing with each passing minute. Just as hope began to slip away, he spotted a sealed can beneath a fallen rack. Heart pounding, Marcus lifted it carefully, inspecting the faded label, beans. A miracle. He glanced down at Atlas, who sat patiently nearby, tongue lolling, eyes brightening at his master's find. "Looks like dinner tonight, buddy," Marcus murmured softly, his voice a raspy whisper, as if unwilling to disturb the oppressive silence. Atlas wagged his tail faintly, understanding the tone, if not the words. They settled near the shop's doorway, where weak daylight filtered through ash-coated windows, Marcus prying the can open with his rusted multi-tool. He scooped out half onto a bent tin lid, placing it carefully in front of Atlas. The dog ate slowly, savoring each bite despite his clear hunger. As Marcus consumed the remainder sparingly, eyes wandering toward the endless gloom outside. Marcus's mind drifted, memories weaving through his consciousness. Faces of comrades lost, laughter around distant campfires, moments of peace long extinguished. He shook himself free from the past, forcing his focus back onto survival. They needed fresh water, something he hadn't found in days. His throat was parched, lips cracked painfully from dehydration. After their sparse meal, Marcus rose reluctantly, knees creaking, and guided Atlas outside into the street once more. They wandered deeper into the heart of the destroyed city, passing empty playgrounds where swings hung motionless like forgotten dreams. As evening approached, shadows stretched long, the temperature dropping sharply. The bitter cold pierced through Marcus's thin uniform, his body trembling despite his hardened resilience. At the intersection of two main streets, beneath a twisted streetlight, stood the skeletal remains of a flagpole. A tattered American flag clung desperately to the rusted metal, fluttering weakly, its stars faded, stripes shredded, barely recognizable, yet defiant in its fragility. Marcus paused, his gaze fixed on the ragged cloth, heart heavy with the weight of everything it symbolized. Atlas whimpered quietly beside him, shifting uncomfortably, his weakened body swaying slightly. Marcus knelt immediately, his heart tightening. He cradled Atlas's weary face, thumb stroking the dog's matted fur, silently apologizing for the hardships they'd both endured. He knew what he must do, though the very thought shattered his heart. Marcus reached toward the heavy chain around Atlas's neck, the same chain he'd used to ensure Atlas stayed close, stayed safe. His fingers trembled uncontrollably as he fumbled with the clasp, emotions surging violently within him. Atlas sat perfectly still, patient and trusting, eyes calm as he gazed at Marcus, sensing his master's pain but not comprehending its reason. Finally, the clasp clicked free, and the chain fell heavily to the ash-covered ground. Marcus's breath caught sharply, tears blurring his vision, tracing lines through the dirt on his cheeks. He placed a shaking hand gently against Atlas's fur, whispering brokenly, "You're free now, Atlas. Go find peace, friend." Atlas tilted his head slightly, ears twitching as if trying to understand. He didn't move, didn't run. Instead, the old dog leaned forward slowly, pressing his forehead into Marcus's chest, an act of comfort they'd shared countless times before. Marcus wrapped his arms around Atlas, holding tightly to the last remaining fragment of his humanity, feeling the heartbeat of his faithful friend beneath his palm. The wind whispered mournfully around them, stirring ashes and memories alike. Marcus knew Atlas wouldn't leave him, but the gesture of freedom was necessary, a promise fulfilled, a debt repaid. After several minutes, Marcus pulled away, wiping his eyes roughly. Atlas remained faithfully by his side, accepting his freedom, but choosing loyalty above all else. Marcus took a deep breath, rising with newfound determination. If Atlas chose to stay, then they would continue together, two survivors bound by duty and love in a city overtaken by despair. They turned their backs on the broken flagpole, continuing their silent journey down streets shadowed by dusk, each step heavy yet resolute. They still needed water, shelter, and something more elusive, a reason to keep moving forward. In the distance, unnoticed by Marcus, a pair of eyes watched intently from a darkened window, curious and wary. Hidden deep within the ruins of a hospital basement, Emily Harper, a slender woman in her late 30s, pale-faced and delicate-featured with long auburn hair now tangled and dusty, studied Marcus closely. Her green eyes held a mixture of hope and uncertainty. She'd remained hidden for months, isolated by fear and loneliness. The sight of Marcus and Atlas awakened something she'd almost forgotten, the desire to connect, to live beyond mere existence. As darkness fell completely, Marcus and Atlas vanished from her sight. Emily stood slowly, breathing deeply, a decision quietly solidifying within her heart. Tomorrow, she would leave her sanctuary. Tomorrow, she would follow them into the unknown. Emily Harper stood motionless at the shattered window, watching as the silhouettes of Marcus and Atlas melted into the darkness. Emily was a slender woman in her late 30s, with delicate features marked by the lingering shadows of exhaustion. Her long, auburn hair had lost its vibrant shine, tangled and coated with dust from months underground. Her green eyes, once full of warmth and compassion, had become wary and uncertain, guarded from a world that had taken everything away. Once a devoted nurse, her gentle hands had healed countless patients, yet now trembled from constant anxiety. She had spent months in the damp basement beneath Ashfield General Hospital, surviving on dwindling supplies, isolated by fear and despair. But today, seeing another human being after so long ignited something deep within her. Hope, fragile yet insistent. Emily drew a shaky breath, stepping back from the broken glass. Her heart pounded erratically as she surveyed the cramped space that had been her sanctuary. Rusted shelving held empty medical containers, while blankets and old uniforms formed a makeshift bed in the corner. The dim glow from a dying flashlight illuminated a faded photograph on the wall. Emily standing with her hospital colleagues, smiling brightly, oblivious to the nightmare awaiting them. She glanced briefly at their faces, feeling a pang of loss, before turning to gather her courage. Carefully, Emily packed a small, worn backpack with essentials: water from her final remaining bottle, dried biscuits, a first aid kit, and an old metal flashlight. Her fingers hesitated over a small leather-bound notebook, filled with handwritten notes and sketches she'd made to maintain her sanity. She slipped it gently in her bag, then moved toward the basement door, her steps slow and deliberate. The rusty hinges creaked loudly as she pushed open the heavy door, stepping onto the stairs. Fear tightened in her chest, memories of that dreadful day flooding back. The explosions shaking the building, frantic screams echoing through hallways, desperate faces she couldn't save. Shaking her head, Emily forced herself onward, one step at a time, her heartbeat quickening as daylight filtered through the cracks of the exit above. Emerging onto the ground floor, she gasped involuntarily at the devastation. The hospital lobby was now a ruin, walls blown apart, twisted beams jutting out like broken ribs. A thick layer of dust covered everything, stirred only by the cold breeze whispering through shattered windows. Emily shivered in the gray light, feeling exposed and vulnerable. She clutched her jacket tighter around her thin frame, eyes scanning the bleak landscape beyond. She took hesitant steps outside, shoes crunching softly on fragments of glass and rubble. Above her head, the sky remained a dull, oppressive gray, heavy with the aftermath of destruction. The streets stretched empty in every direction, lined with half-collapsed buildings that stood as silent monuments to catastrophe. Emily's breath quickened, panic clawing at her throat, but she pressed forward, determined to find the mysterious man and his dog. She had no clear plan, only an instinctual need to reach out to another human soul. Meanwhile, several blocks away, Marcus had found temporary refuge inside a hollowed-out bookstore. Shelves leaned precariously against crumbling walls, their books reduced to ash-covered relics of lost knowledge. Marcus sat beside Atlas, gently stroking the dog's thin fur, his heart still aching from the earlier decision to free his loyal companion. Atlas, despite the removal of his chain, remained steadfastly by Marcus's side, eyes soft with trust and affection. Marcus glanced around, eyes lingering on the faded posters, still clinging stubbornly to the bookstore walls, reminders of stories and worlds that once distracted from the harshness of reality. His gaze caught a small, laminated map of Ashfield pinned behind a broken counter. Standing up carefully, Marcus approached it, tracing routes and landmarks. His finger stopped at Ashfield General Hospital. Perhaps there, he reasoned, might still remain medical supplies, antibiotics, or painkillers to ease Atlas's growing discomfort. Decision made, Marcus knelt beside Atlas, gently scratching behind the dog's ears. "We've got another mission, buddy," he whispered reassuringly. Atlas gave a quiet whine, his tail swishing slightly in understanding. Together, they left the bookstore, stepping cautiously into the gloomy street. As they walked, Marcus's thoughts wandered back to his lost comrades, their faces etched permanently into his memory. Grief and guilt gnawed at him relentlessly, but Atlas's steady presence beside him served as a quiet anchor, grounding him amidst overwhelming sorrow. On the opposite end of the road, Emily stumbled forward, exhausted from navigating through unfamiliar terrain. Each empty street corner seemed identical, each turn threatening to disorient her further. Her breath grew short, anxiety mounting with every passing moment. Just as panic began tightening its grip, her eyes spotted a tattered flag fluttering weakly on a distant pole, the same flag she had seen earlier from her window. Her pulse quickened, a surge of hope propelling her onward. As she drew closer, Emily suddenly froze. A noise drifted from the intersection, a metallic clang, followed by the faint murmur of a human voice. Heart hammering wildly, she crept forward until the shapes of Marcus and Atlas became visible once more. Marcus was carefully lifting debris from a fallen supply cart, searching meticulously for anything useful. Emily swallowed hard, unsure of how to approach, uncertainty gripping her tightly. In that moment, a loud crash echoed from a nearby alley, startling everyone. Marcus instantly tensed, hand instinctively reaching for the knife on his belt, eyes alert. Atlas's ears perked, a low growl rumbling from deep within his throat. Emily shrank back instinctively, heart thundering in fear. From the shadows emerged a small figure, a thin boy, no older than 12, dirty blonde hair tangled and unkempt, large blue eyes wide with fear. He wore torn clothes too large for his frail frame, hands trembling as he raised them in surrender. "Please, don't hurt me," he whispered timidly, tears welling in his eyes. Marcus relaxed slightly, recognizing the boy as no threat. He lowered his blade, expression softening. "It's all right," he said calmly. "Who are you?" "Tommy," the boy responded shakily. "I've been alone since the sky burned. I've seen you walking around, you and your dog. I just wanted food." Marcus felt a pang of sympathy, immediately reaching into his bag, offering the boy some dried jerky. Tommy snatched it gratefully, eyes glistening with tears. Atlas sniffed cautiously, then moved forward gently, nudging the boy reassuringly. Tommy's tense posture eased, a hesitant smile breaking through his fear. Watching this scene unfold, Emily finally summoned her courage, stepping out into clear view. Marcus spun quickly, instantly defensive, but relaxed upon seeing Emily's hesitant stance, her pale face radiating vulnerability. "Please," Emily began softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I mean no harm. I've been watching, hoping to find others." Marcus studied her carefully, taking in her fragile appearance and honest eyes, sensing the sincerity behind her words. His heart softened further, recognizing the desperate loneliness mirrored in her gaze. "You're safe," he assured gently, voice steady. "We won't hurt you." Emily's shoulders sagged in relief, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. Slowly, Marcus extended a comforting hand, bridging the gap between their isolated worlds. Emily stepped forward, accepting his offered reassurance, while Atlas pressed warmly against her side. Tommy watched with quiet wonder, feeling, perhaps for the first time since the apocalypse, a sense of hope blooming within the bleakness. Together, this newfound group turned toward Ashfield General Hospital, unaware of what future lay ahead. Yet, for the first time, none of them felt entirely alone amidst the ashen ruins of the city. Ashfield General loomed ahead in stark silhouette against the ash-colored sky, its skeletal remains twisted grotesquely as if frozen in agony. Marcus Hale, led the small group cautiously forward, his eyes scanning the wreckage for any sign of threat. Atlas limped close at his side, his breathing labored but determined. Behind them, Emily Harper kept a wary eye on young Tommy, whose quiet footsteps scuffed nervously on broken pavement. Marcus glanced back briefly, assessing their condition. Emily's pale face had lost some of its previous fearfulness, replaced now by quiet resolve. Tommy, meanwhile, clung to the tattered hem of his oversized jacket, blue eyes wide, flicking anxiously around at shadows cast by burned-out cars and jagged rubble piles. Marcus couldn't help but feel protective, a long-forgotten instinct beginning to stir again. They reached the crumbling hospital entrance, stepping carefully through shards of shattered glass. Inside, the air was cold and heavy, tinged with mold and decay. Emily shivered involuntarily, haunted by memories of her final frantic moments within these walls. Marcus noticed her distress, placing a comforting hand gently on her shoulder. She glanced up gratefully, drawing courage from his steady gaze. Marcus carefully guided them deeper into the lobby, now an unrecognizable chaos of overturned furniture and fallen debris. Atlas paused, sniffing tentatively at the air. Marcus immediately halted, trusting his companion's instincts without question. Atlas growled softly, a low warning vibrating deep in his chest. From behind a toppled reception desk, there emerged the cautious figure of an elderly man, thin and wiry with sharp features and wispy white hair. His eyes were pale blue, narrowed with suspicion yet sparkling with intelligence. He wore a threadbare doctor's coat that hung loosely on his gaunt frame, sleeves rolled unevenly above bony wrists. "Easy," Marcus said quietly, raising both palms to indicate peaceful intentions. "We mean you no harm." The elderly man hesitated momentarily, then straightened cautiously. "Forgive my caution," he said hoarsely, clearing his throat. "My name is Dr. Benjamin Clark. I've been surviving here alone since the blast." His gaze shifted to Emily, recognition dawning slowly across his weary face. "Emily Harper? You survived." Emily stepped forward, relief brightening her eyes. "Dr. Clark, I never thought I'd see anyone else again." Dr. Clark gave a tired smile, his suspicion melting into genuine warmth. "I assumed I was the last. It seems fate has other plans." As the introductions continued softly, Marcus drifted momentarily into painful memory. His gaze fixed upon Atlas, whose attentive posture had relaxed now that the immediate danger was past. Marcus felt himself transported back to that final, devastating mission, images vivid and mercilessly clear in his mind. The explosion had come without warning, a blinding flash followed instantly by a deafening roar that ripped through the heart of his Special Forces unit. Marcus had barely registered the impact before darkness claimed him, consciousness fleeting beneath the crushing weight of debris. When he awoke, it was Atlas's frantic whines and determined pulling that had dragged him back to life, inch by agonizing inch. Marcus remembered the searing pain, the dust-choked air, and Atlas's desperate strength refusing to abandon him. Every member of his team, men he'd called brothers, had perished. The scars of loss cut deeper than any physical wound, raw and unhealed beneath the surface. Marcus shook himself free from memories, chest tight with unresolved grief. Atlas pressed reassuringly against his leg, sensing the turmoil within his companion. Marcus knelt down slowly, his fingers brushing softly across the dog's scarred flank, the mark left permanently by that terrible day. He whispered words of gratitude, a private exchange that no other ears could understand. Atlas licked Marcus's palm gently in response, his trust unwavering. A sudden commotion drew Marcus's attention back to the present. Dr. Clark had produced a small crate of supplies from beneath the battered reception desk, offering bottled water and sealed rations, an unexpected bounty. Tommy's face brightened instantly, eyes wide with disbelief. He eagerly accepted a packet of dried fruit, eating hungrily yet cautiously, as if fearing it might vanish. Emily quietly approached Marcus, her expression gentle but concerned. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, noticing the shadows lingering in his eyes. Marcus hesitated briefly, then nodded slowly. "Just old ghosts. Sometimes they come back stronger than expected." Emily nodded knowingly, her own haunted expression reflecting an understanding born from her months alone. "I see them too, sometimes. But maybe, together, we can help each other leave them behind." Marcus looked at her thoughtfully, seeing beyond the fragile exterior to the quiet strength beneath. He offered a small, rare smile. "Maybe you're right." As the evening descended further into darkness, they prepared makeshift bedding within the hospital lobby. Tommy curled up quietly in the corner, exhaustion overtaking his small body quickly. Dr. Clark took the first watch, seated protectively nearby, his thin hands clutching a battered medical manual like an anchor. Marcus found himself unable to sleep, sitting close to Atlas beneath a broken window. The dog's slow breathing steadied Marcus's nerves, grounding him in reality. Emily sat nearby, her green eyes wide open in contemplation. She spoke softly into the stillness. "I never thanked you, Marcus, for letting me come with you, for not leaving me behind." Marcus turned slightly, studying her profile illuminated softly by pale moonlight filtering through ashen clouds. "We survive better together," he answered simply. "None of us can make it alone, not forever." Emily nodded quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was afraid, so terrified, every single moment. Seeing you and Atlas gave me the courage to leave that basement. You gave me hope, Marcus. You both did." Marcus remained silent for several heartbeats, touched deeply by her sincerity. Eventually, he spoke quietly, voice heavy with honesty. "I lost my entire unit in a single moment. Atlas saved my life that day, and again many days afterward. Without him, I would have given up. Maybe we're all meant to help save each other now." Emily's eyes shimmered softly, her gaze meeting his steadily. "Maybe," she agreed gently. "Maybe we're exactly where we're meant to be." They sat quietly after that, words no longer necessary between them. Outside, wind whispered softly through broken streets, carrying echoes of the past. But within these crumbling walls, amidst ruin and uncertainty, something delicate yet unbreakable was beginning to form, bonds forged in shared struggle and fragile hope. As dawn approached, Marcus felt Atlas stir quietly beside him, rising stiffly with an air of purpose. The old dog limped determinedly toward a darkened corner, sniffing intently. Marcus watched curiously as Atlas nudged an overturned shelf, revealing beneath it a single, dusty can of preserved meat, forgotten, overlooked, yet miraculous in its timing. Marcus chuckled softly, amazed by his companion's unwavering resilience. Atlas turned his head slightly, eyes sparkling triumphantly as Marcus retrieved their small victory. In that moment, Marcus knew their journey was far from over. The wounds they carried, visible and hidden, remained unhealed, but each new day brought them closer to mending. And as he shared this modest find with their small, newfound family, Marcus Hale dared to believe that perhaps scars didn't need to disappear completely for healing to begin. Marcus awoke just before dawn, exhaustion weighing heavily upon his eyelids as the first pale glow of sunlight seeped through the hospital's shattered windows. Atlas lay quietly beside him, breathing shallowly, his chest barely rising with each labored inhalation. Marcus felt a sudden, piercing fear twist inside him. Kneeling quickly, he placed a gentle hand upon Atlas's graying muzzle, his fingers trembling as they brushed the dog's matted fur. Atlas opened his weary eyes, their familiar warmth clouded by pain. Marcus whispered softly, his voice choked, "Hold on, buddy. Just hold on." Determination replaced Marcus's despair. Rising swiftly, he strapped on his pack, glancing back to ensure Emily, Tommy, and Dr. Clark still rested soundly. Marcus stepped silently outside, greeted by the cold embrace of morning air and the persistent scent of burnt rubble. He needed to find medicine, something, anything, to ease Atlas's suffering. His eyes searched the twisted streets, eventually settling on a half-collapsed pharmacy building a block away, its signage barely visible beneath layers of ash and soot. Marcus sprinted urgently through debris-strewn streets, his boots crunching harshly upon charred metal and shattered concrete. The pharmacy's door hung precariously on rusted hinges, opening easily with a firm push. Inside, the dim interior held an eerie stillness. Shelves leaned drunkenly, their contents long scavenged. Yet Marcus moved carefully, refusing surrender. His trained eyes scanned diligently, seeking overlooked corners or forgotten spaces. Suddenly, beneath a fallen shelf, Marcus spotted a small white box, antibiotics. He exhaled sharply, relief flooding his veins. As he pocketed the precious medicine, his attention was caught by something else. Distinct footprints in the thick dust coating the floor. They were recent, clear evidence someone else had passed through here recently. His heart quickened at the realization that they were not alone, igniting fragile hope within his battered spirit. Meanwhile, in the pale morning glow, Emily awoke abruptly, disoriented at first by her unfamiliar surroundings. She rose slowly, noticing Marcus's empty sleeping spot and Atlas lying still nearby. Her heart clenched upon seeing Atlas's weakened state. Emily approached carefully, stroking the dog's fur gently, whispering soothing words. Atlas's tail twitched slightly in response, though he remained motionless. Emily felt her heart swell with compassion for both the suffering animal and Marcus, whose quiet strength had begun to deeply affect her. After checking on Tommy and Dr. Clark, who slept peacefully nearby, Emily stepped outside cautiously, the air sharp against her skin. She scanned the street, hoping to find Marcus nearby. Instead, her eyes caught sight of an old residential house across the way, still mostly intact, windows cracked but walls standing firm. Curiosity drew her forward. Something about the building felt important, significant. The interior was silent, rooms frozen in abandonment. Furniture lay overturned, dishes shattered across the kitchen floor. Emily entered cautiously, her gaze eventually drawn to the mantelpiece, where a single framed photograph sat coated with a thin layer of ash. Carefully picking it up, Emily wiped the surface gently, revealing faces beneath. Her breath caught sharply as she recognized Marcus immediately. Younger, strong, and smiling broadly alongside a group of uniformed soldiers, arms draped comfortably around each other's shoulders. They looked happy, hopeful, alive. Emily's hands trembled slightly as understanding dawned upon her. Marcus had belonged here. This place once held meaning, memories shared by his lost unit. She glanced around, imagining laughter and camaraderie echoing within these walls before devastation ripped everything away. Grief surged powerfully through Emily, blending seamlessly with admiration for Marcus's strength and resilience in surviving alone. Determined, Emily replaced the photo carefully, knowing now more than ever that she must stand beside him, help him reclaim hope from ruin. Across town, Marcus returned swiftly toward the hospital, heart pounding as he considered the footprints he'd discovered. Someone else remained alive in Ashfield, someone who might provide answers or aid. Yet Marcus tempered his optimism cautiously, knowing survival in such devastation often changed people, turning them desperate and dangerous. He must protect those now under his care, keeping hope balanced carefully with vigilance. Upon reaching the hospital, Marcus immediately administered antibiotics to Atlas, carefully dissolving the tablets into a bowl of water. Atlas drank slowly, eyes weary yet trusting. Marcus murmured quietly, promising protection and healing as his hand rested reassuringly upon Atlas's scarred body. Only after watching Atlas slip into peaceful rest did Marcus relax slightly, the urgency receding momentarily. Emily returned shortly thereafter, finding Marcus kneeling beside Atlas, his expression tenderly protective. Quietly approaching, she placed a gentle hand upon Marcus's shoulder. He glanced upward sharply, initially startled, then relaxing upon recognizing Emily. She knelt beside him silently, Her green eyes filled with understanding. "I found a photograph," Emily began softly, her voice careful yet certain. "Your unit was here once, wasn't it?" Marcus tensed slightly, pain shadowing his features briefly before he nodded slowly. "We were stationed here briefly before everything fell apart," he admitted quietly, gaze distant. "This city was meant to be a haven, a safe place. Instead, it became our grave." Emily watched him closely, sensing the depth of wounds still fresh beneath Marcus's hardened exterior. Carefully, she spoke again. "I can't imagine your loss, Marcus. But you're not alone anymore. Atlas, Tommy, Dr. Clark, me, we're here with you now. We'll share your burden. You don't have to carry it alone." Marcus met her eyes steadily, gratitude flickering briefly within his gaze before fading behind cautious reserve. Still, he nodded quietly. "Thank you, Emily. Sometimes hope feels more dangerous than despair. Easier to stay numb, detached. But maybe it's time to start believing again." They sat quietly after that, comfort shared silently between them. Eventually, Marcus revealed softly what he'd discovered, the footprints indicating another survivor within Ashfield. Emily listened intently, heart quickening at the news. Together, they agreed to investigate further, balancing caution carefully alongside fragile optimism. By late afternoon, the group gathered outside the hospital, refreshed slightly from their brief respite. Tommy stood near Dr. Clark, his young face determined yet uncertain about what lay ahead. Marcus carefully lifted Atlas, whose strength remained limited despite the medication, carrying him tenderly as they set forth toward the pharmacy once more. Inside the pharmacy, Marcus pointed out the footprints to the others, explaining carefully their significance. Dr. Clark examined the tracks thoughtfully, nodding slowly in agreement. "They're recent," he confirmed softly. "Someone else remains in Ashfield." Tommy spoke suddenly, voice small yet courageous. "Maybe they're alone too. Maybe they need us just as much as we need them." Marcus smiled faintly, impressed by the boy's simple wisdom. "Maybe you're right, Tommy," he acknowledged gently. "We'll search carefully, see if we can find them." As they exited the pharmacy, preparing to continue onward, a sudden noise echoed loudly down the street. A metallic clang, distinctly human-made. Marcus immediately shielded Atlas protectively, eyes scanning alertly. From behind a distant wrecked vehicle stepped cautiously a tall woman, mid-40s, slender yet athletic. Her short blonde hair framed a face weathered by hardship, sharp eyes wary yet intelligent. She wore practical clothes stained with dirt and soot, a rifle slung loosely yet expertly across her shoulder. Her gaze met Marcus's squarely, assessing quickly yet calmly. "My name is Laura Bennett," she announced steadily, voice clear and strong. "I've been tracking you, watching. Didn't think anyone else had survived until I saw you yesterday." She paused briefly, glancing toward Atlas compassionately. "Maybe we can help each other survive a little longer." Marcus studied her intently, recognizing immediately another capable survivor like himself. Slowly, he extended his hand, accepting this unexpected connection forged amidst ruin. "Marcus Hale," he replied steadily. "You're welcome among us, Laura. Maybe together we'll find something worth hoping for." As they shook hands firmly beneath Ashfield's gray skies, each survivor felt faint stirrings deep within, footsteps echoing softly, guiding them cautiously toward renewed hope amidst devastation. The gray sky hung heavily over the skeletal remains of Ashfield, casting muted light through the ruins of the city library. Once a majestic building of stone and glass, now it stood shattered and scorched, barely recognizable amidst piles of rubble and ash-covered books. Deep beneath the collapsed structure, Marcus Hale had found refuge in a forgotten basement shelter, a narrow space filled with ancient tomes and fading manuscripts, a haunting reminder of the world before it fell apart. Beside him, Atlas lay silently, breathing shallowly, his wounded body stretched across a makeshift bed of old blankets Marcus had salvaged. Marcus sat in quiet despair, his fingers gently stroking the fur along Atlas's spine. His heart felt heavier than ever, burdened by loneliness and uncertainty. He knew time was running short for his faithful companion, and despite the medicine he'd found, Atlas remained weak and fragile. Marcus exhaled slowly, closing his eyes as grief surged once again, threatening to engulf him completely. Above ground, Emily Harper moved with cautious determination, accompanied closely by Laura Bennett. Laura was a tall woman, with short blonde hair framing her angular face. Her piercing blue eyes held a mix of compassion and guarded suspicion, a result of years spent surviving alone. Laura was skilled and resourceful, carrying her rifle comfortably and moving with the confident grace of someone familiar with hardship. She had agreed readily to help Emily track Marcus, her instincts honed sharply by solitude, guiding them carefully through Ashfield's treacherous landscape. Emily's mind raced anxiously as they neared the ruined library. The photograph she'd found earlier, Marcus standing proudly with his unit, remained vivid in her thoughts, a symbol of courage and tragedy intertwined. Emily had never met Marcus before this catastrophe, yet felt deeply connected to him through shared loss and survival. Determined, she pushed forward, her breath quickening as they stepped carefully through scattered debris, heading toward the entrance of the basement shelter. Inside, Marcus stiffened suddenly, hearing faint footsteps approach above. His hand instinctively reached for his weapon, muscles taut with caution. Atlas raised his head weakly, ears pricked slightly despite his frailty. Marcus whispered softly, calming his companion, though his own heart pounded rapidly. Silence fell again briefly before a soft voice drifted downward, tentative yet clear. "Marcus! Marcus, are you there?" Recognition flooded Marcus immediately, dissolving his tension into stunned relief. "Emily," he called back incredulously, rising quickly from the shadows. Climbing hurriedly toward the sound of her voice, Marcus emerged from below, stepping into daylight for the first time in hours. Emily stood at the edge of the collapsed doorway, her auburn hair catching gently in the breeze, green eyes wide with anxious hope. Behind her, Laura maintained careful watch, weapon lowered but alert. Without hesitation, Emily moved forward, bridging the final distance between them. Her face was filled with warmth and understanding as she reached out, grasping Marcus's hands tightly in her own. "We found you," she whispered softly, relief evident in every syllable. Marcus stared into Emily's sincere gaze, feeling something deep inside him begin to thaw, a long-frozen part of his soul finally melting beneath the warmth of human compassion. "Thank you," he said quietly, voice thick with emotion. "I didn't realize how much I needed someone else until now." Emily smiled gently, her presence steady and reassuring. "You're not alone anymore, Marcus. Neither of us are. Together we can face whatever comes next." They descended carefully into the basement, Laura following quietly, her eyes calmly assessing the surroundings. Atlas lay waiting patiently, his tail wagging feebly at the sound of familiar voices. Emily moved swiftly to his side, her medical instincts taking over instantly. Kneeling beside the wounded dog, she examined him carefully, gently probing his injuries with practiced care. Marcus watched anxiously, grateful beyond words for Emily's skill and compassion. Working steadily, Emily cleaned and bandaged Atlas's wounds, carefully applying ointment from the supplies Marcus had found earlier. Atlas relaxed visibly beneath her gentle touch, his breathing deepening into peaceful rest. Emily smiled warmly at Marcus, reassuring him silently that Atlas would survive, the relief brightening Marcus's tired features immediately. Marcus and Emily settled quietly beside Atlas, a comfortable silence filling the space between them. Laura had positioned herself discreetly nearby, keeping vigilant watch, allowing Marcus and Emily time to reconnect. After several moments, Marcus spoke softly, his voice hesitant yet honest. "I lost everyone, Emily, my entire unit, my friends. They were like family, the only family I ever really knew. When the explosion happened, everything fell apart so quickly. Atlas saved me, pulled me from the rubble. But afterward, every day felt empty, hopeless. I thought I'd be alone forever. Emily listened quietly, understanding reflected clearly in her expressive eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried equal vulnerability and sincerity. I worked at the hospital here when everything went wrong. We lost patient after patient, no matter how hard we tried. Eventually, I hit a lone underground, terrified to leave. Finding you, Marcus, it felt like a second chance at hope. Seeing your photograph, your unit, I knew you'd endured as much as I had, maybe more. I knew we could survive better together. Marcus nodded solemnly, appreciating deeply Emily's candidness and bravery in sharing her pain. Maybe now, we can finally begin to heal, he said quietly, voice filled with newfound determination. Laura, hearing their conversation, stepped forward carefully. You're both stronger than you realize, she remarked steadily, her tone reassuring. Survival doesn't mean forgetting our past. It means honoring those we lost by continuing forward. Together, perhaps we'll make something new from the ashes. Marcus met Laura's steady gaze gratefully, recognizing another soul who understood resilience born from tragedy. He reached out his hand, Laura grasping it firmly, an unspoken bond forming instantly between them. Tommy and Dr. Clark, who had remained safely hidden nearby, now approached cautiously, sensing the change within their small group. Marcus turned to them, his voice carrying quiet confidence. We've all suffered great loss, but today marks a new beginning. From here onward, we face challenges together, never again alone. Tommy smiled shyly, stepping closer beside Dr. Clark, whose wise face bore approval and warmth. Emily placed a gentle hand upon Marcus's arm, silently supporting him in this newfound strength. Atlas lifted his head slightly, sensing the growing hope around him, his weary eyes brighter with determination. As night fell once more upon Ashfield, the small group sat closely within their humble sanctuary, sharing quiet stories and gentle laughter beneath flickering candlelight. Marcus felt the weight upon his heart lifting slightly with each passing moment, comforted deeply by those now surrounding him. Emily's presence beside him felt natural and reassuring, promising the possibility of happiness amid chaos. Laura watched protectively nearby, her quiet strength providing security to all. Together, they formed an unlikely family, bonded by hardship yet determined to forge hope anew. Outside, stars began slowly piercing through dark clouds, casting gentle illumination upon the broken city below. Amidst ruin and destruction, footsteps echoed quietly, a fragile yet persistent rhythm, signaling resilience born anew from ashes. Marcus Hale understood clearly now, survival no longer meant solitary endurance. Life, no matter how harshly tested, held potential beauty when shared openly with others. And deep within Ashfield's ruins, the quiet embrace of companionship replaced isolation, illuminating a path toward healing amidst devastation. Proof undeniable that even amidst darkness, hope could still flourish brilliantly. In the weeks following their emotional reunion beneath the collapsed library, Marcus Hale and Emily Harper began to find a quiet rhythm in their daily routine, one defined by careful preparation, steady resilience, and above all, a newfound closeness that neither had expected. With each passing day, Marcus felt something within him grow lighter, as though the burden he had carried for so long was finally easing. Emily's presence became a beacon of warmth, her compassion and determination bringing a gentle strength that fortified everyone around her. Under Emily's careful medical care, Atlas slowly regained strength, his breathing becoming more even, his limp less pronounced. The German Shepherd's thick, brindled coat, once dulled by injury and neglect, had regained its healthy sheen under their watchful care. Atlas was old now, nearly 12 years, with eyes that had seen too much, yet his spirit burned as fiercely as ever. He walked at Marcus's side each day, ears alert, eyes bright, a steadfast companion unwilling to surrender despite his age and injuries. Laura Bennett, with her tall, athletic build and calm demeanor, settled naturally into the group. Her short blonde hair, though usually kept neatly out of her sharp blue eyes, now grew slightly disheveled, softening her severe appearance and reflecting the subtle changes in her guarded nature. Though she still preferred silence, her watchful eyes were filled with a quiet protectiveness toward Tommy, the young boy who had grown remarkably close to her during their days together. Tommy himself had flourished under the nurturing environment, his face losing the perpetual shadow of anxiety. He began to smile more readily, asking questions that revealed his natural curiosity about the world around him. Dr. Benjamin Clark provided wisdom and stability, his gaunt figure growing healthier from proper nourishment and rest. Though his thin white hair remained disheveled, his pale blue eyes regained some of their old twinkle, his scholarly nature reawakening as he carefully documented their experiences in a worn leather-bound journal. Dr. Clark had once been a revered physician, and he now offered what medical knowledge remained within his fading memory, always accompanied by reassuring words and gentle kindness. As days blended into weeks, the small group created their own sanctuary amidst Ashfield's bleak devastation. They cleared space within a partially intact firehouse, creating makeshift rooms with scavenged furniture and fabric dividers. Meals, however meager, were shared warmly each night, accompanied by quiet conversation and occasionally soft laughter, a sound once thought lost forever. One cool evening, as twilight draped Ashfield in shades of indigo and gray, Marcus climbed carefully onto the rooftop of their shelter, Atlas following closely behind him, paws patting gently on metal and wood. Marcus carried with him the tattered American flag they had found weeks earlier. He stood silently, watching the ruined city stretch out beneath him, a ghostly landscape of crumbled buildings and abandoned dreams. The air felt unusually clear, a crispness Marcus hadn't felt since before the disaster. As darkness deepened, something remarkable began to happen. Tiny specks of starlight pierced through the dense clouds above, delicate yet persistent, slowly revealing a sky Marcus had not truly seen in months. His breath caught softly at the sight, a deep ache spreading gently within his chest. He heard footsteps approach carefully behind him and turned to see Emily stepping lightly onto the roof. Her auburn hair was softly illuminated by starlight, her green eyes wide with wonder at the unexpected spectacle above. "It's beautiful," she whispered softly, stepping closer beside him. Marcus nodded quietly, gaze fixed upon the glimmering stars. "I'd almost forgotten there was beauty left," he admitted gently, voice rough with emotion. "This sky feels like a sign, Emily. A sign that maybe it's time we moved on." Emily studied his face, her expression thoughtful yet supportive. "Do you really think there might be others out there? Survivors like us?" Marcus met her hopeful gaze steadily. "I believe we owe it to ourselves, to Atlas, Tommy, Laura, and Dr. Clark to find out. We can't rebuild life alone. Perhaps others are waiting for us, searching for something more, just like we once were." Emily reached out softly, her fingers brushing Marcus's hand lightly. "Then we should leave," she agreed firmly. "Leave Ashfield behind and seek something new, something better." Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest at her determination, appreciating deeply the strength and optimism she embodied. Carefully, he secured the torn American flag to a tall, rusted pole protruding from the rooftop, allowing it to flutter gently in the soft night breeze. It was battered and worn, frayed at its edges, but it stood proudly, a quiet promise never to abandon hope, no matter how bleak the world became. Laura, Tommy, and Dr. Clark joined them soon afterward, drawn upward by the beauty of the rare clear sky. Tommy gasped softly, eyes wide with awe as he took in the star-filled heavens. "I never knew there were so many," he murmured, voice filled with innocent wonder. Laura placed a comforting hand upon his shoulder, her usually reserved expression softening noticeably. "It's a reminder, Tommy," she said gently, her voice steady yet kind. "No matter how dark things seem, There's always something worth looking toward. Dr. Clark nodded sagely, his pale eyes reflective. Humanity has always found strength in moments like this. We look upward, and in the stars, we see hope. Hope for a better tomorrow. Marcus knelt beside Atlas, stroking the dog's fur thoughtfully. Atlas lifted his head, gazing upward briefly before releasing a deep, resonant bark, strong and clear, echoing out across the empty city streets below. Marcus chuckled softly, hearing in that sound a farewell to the past and a greeting to the future. Early the next morning, beneath soft pink streaks of dawn, the small group gathered carefully outside their makeshift home. Marcus adjusted his backpack, turning to face Emily, whose eyes held quiet strength and certainty. Laura stood protectively near Tommy, her gaze calm and reassuring. Dr. Clark adjusted his thin coat thoughtfully, eyes shining with cautious optimism. Atlas stood beside Marcus, his stance solid despite his age and lingering weakness, loyalty unwavering as always. Marcus spoke clearly, addressing them all with quiet authority. We leave Ashfield today, not because we're giving up, but because we've learned that survival is about more than just staying alive. It's about finding each other, building something new from the ruins. Somewhere out there, others might be waiting, needing us as much as we need them. Emily stepped forward gently, her presence firm beside Marcus. Together, we carry the memories of those we lost. And together, we'll find a way forward. With steady confidence, Marcus began walking forward, Atlas padding faithfully beside him, Emily at his shoulder. Laura, Tommy, and Dr. Clark followed closely, footsteps echoing softly on broken pavement, eyes lifted toward the horizon, stretching endlessly ahead. They moved onward through the shattered streets of Ashfield, past charred vehicles and half-fallen structures, beneath a sky gradually brightening with the promise of a new day. Behind them, the tattered American flag flew proudly atop the ruins, a silent testimony of resilience, courage, and unyielding hope amidst devastation. Marcus felt no bitterness, no lingering despair, as he took these first steps away from Ashfield. Beside him walked people who had become family, individuals bonded forever through tragedy and survival, courageously facing the unknown together. Above, faint stars faded gently into daylight, their temporary presence etched permanently within Marcus's memory, a beacon of light, illuminating their path forward into uncertainty. As Atlas barked once more, joyfully this time, Marcus smiled softly, knowing clearly that although their journey would hold further trials, they would never again face them alone. Together, guided by starlight, their footsteps carried them steadily onward, away from ruin and toward renewal, toward life reborn amidst ashes. In the story we've just shared, Marcus, Emily, Atlas, and their friends reminded us all of something truly powerful, that even in the darkest moments, hope can guide us back to the light. Each of us faces challenges and hardships in life, times when we might feel alone or overwhelmed. But just like our characters discovered, strength comes not from isolation, but from leaning on each other, sharing burdens, and walking forward together. Think about your own life today. Perhaps there's someone you could reach out to, or someone who needs your kindness and support. Remember, a simple act of compassion, a friendly word, or a listening ear can mean the world to someone who feels lost. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who might find comfort or encouragement in it. Leave a comment below with Amen if you believe in the power of hope, friendship, and new beginnings. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can continue to bring you stories filled with faith, love, and resilience. May God bless you and guide you always toward brighter days ahead. Amen.